Hello and welcome everyone to the February Town Hall. Uh, Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. Where are you joining us from today? It's always so cool to see where everyone is joining us from and how far the community reaches. The session's being recorded, so you'll be able to watch all of the awesome topics that we cover today, and we'll share that on demand tomorrow. If you have any questions, put them in the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll do our very best to answer them. And if you're new here, welcome. Town halls are all about sharing what's next, learning from real implementations, and building with the people who are part of the DataHub community. And a giant thank you to everyone who make this a regular cadence. And welcome back to Zoom. We're going grassroots. So if you haven't already noticed, we've got our calendar back in Luma. We're back to a monthly cadence. So really excited to keep that rolling for everyone. And if you are new here and you've not yet joined the community, you can do that with the QR code on the screen, or I'll drop a link in the chat so you can join the conversation. And we have a Slack Town Hall channel dedicated to what's going on in Town Hall today. So Shashanka will, as always, be joining the conversation, and excited to see you all over there. Just to give you a preview of our agenda, Maggie Hays, our founding product manager, will walk us through how to build custom connectors with DataHub and demo for us. So lots of cool stuff. And I think there might be a little contest and giveaway. So stick around for that. And then next up, we'll hear from Shishir Ambastha from Foursquare. Shishir is going to walk us through at the showcase of how Foursquare has built their geospatial data AI analyst. And then we'll close out with a look at the roadmap with James Mayfield, our VP of Product, and Q&A. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Maggie and enjoy Town Hall.
Hello. Hello. Wonderful to see everyone. Welcome back to Zoom. If you all have been in town halls in the past, we used to be in Zoom, tried some different platforms, and we're back. That being said, we're also using this like Zoom webinar thing. So if we're stumbling through some of the buttons a little bit, that's why. That is exactly why. All right. So happy February, everybody. Almost March. If we have not met, I am Maggie. I'm the founding product manager of DataHub. Currently, my main focus is on product management and kind of our roadmap and delivery on all things ingestion. So getting metadata into DataHub. The reality is the way that if anybody on my team is probably sick of me say or sick of hearing me say it, but the reality is like DataHub is only as powerful as the metadata that you bring into it. There's so much that you can do to enrich it and act on it within DataHub, but that foundational step of getting all of your metadata in, making sure that all the kind of the connective tissues are in there and all the kind of full end-to-end pipelines or dependency chains are in there is critical for all of the other wonderful kind of AI first things, governance workflows, data discovery, observability, all of that fun stuff. So what we are talking about today is calling it lineage in action, basically how you can start to leverage some LLM first or AI first skills that we've built out to go from zero to a net new metadata ingestion source in literally a matter of hours. That's not even exaggeration. So I was spending some time thinking about, how what the kind of data landscape has looked like in the past 6 months, 3 months, even 1 month. And I'm sure that if you are a data practitioner and you are kind of responsible for managing your data environment, you're probably a little bit overwhelmed by how many net new tools are popping up left and right. Historically, actually, sorry, lost my train of thought there. So with all these new tools that are popping up, there's also a proliferation of interdependencies being created between them, right? So kind of building out AI agents to rely on specific data sources, it's kind of a whole new ball game for us to kind of keep up with. So with this endless amount of net new tools, what we're realizing is that there's also endless amount of kind of gaps in our lineage coverage. Um, so that might be overwhelming. The good news is that what we're announcing today is shipping kind of an AI first or AI toolkit to make sure that you're able to keep up. Over the past 5 years or so, since the DataHub was open sourced, we've relied really, really heavily on wonderful context and expertise from our community members to help build and kind of shape and test out our existing connectors. But the reality is, given the speed at which new tools are popping up, we gotta like rethink how we're approaching this. So, for example, let's kind of walk through a consequence of not keeping up with this. Let's say you work for a company or a tech company or an app that stores all of its production data in Postgres, and then all kind of the initial sync of that into your warehouse is managed by an ETL tool or a load tool that isn't supported by DataHub. What you'd end up with is visibility into all of the really rich lineage connections within Snowflake and DBT, but it's going to be disjoint from what's happening in Postgres. So if I'm a developer on the app team and I want to push a breaking change, maybe just as basic as renaming a field, um, it can be really difficult if we don't kind of have that connective tissue between Postgres into Snowflake and then Snowflake into DBT, et cetera. If we're missing that kind of lineage link, it can be really difficult to know what's the impact of that rename, right? Something that may seem inconsequential in kind of maintenance of your application, it can be difficult to know kind of what those downstream dependencies are. So, for example, if we're missing that kind of connective node, you may do your due diligence and go into DataHub and say, I want to make I'm going to rename rating to something else, right? But when you land there, because we're missing that lineage piece, you may actually have a false negative of understanding or kind of being unable to identify that there are downstream dependencies. So, what we're going to walk through in this session is kind of how you can start to use some of the AI skills that we are rolling out, specifically to build out a net new connector for, excuse me, an open source framework called DLT Hub. DLT Hub is basically it's as simple as data exists in location A. I want it in location B. Historically, we haven't had a data hub connector for it, but in this scenario, it is that connective tissue from your kind of your production environment, syncing that into your warehouse. So before we kind of dig into what those AI skills will look like and what that new workflow will look like, want to kind of reflect a little bit on how we've been building net new ingestion resources or excuse me connectors, and where things stopped scaling and allowing us to kind of keep up with the rapid velocity of the industry. So historically, if we wanted to build the DLT Hub connector, it'd be a very human intensive, research intensive, coding development intensive process that requires a lot of human context and research up front to one, just identify what are patterns of maybe other metadata sources that we can kind of pull from and learn from. So, for example, DLT is data is in location A. I want in location B. So maybe we start with Fivetran. Maybe we start with Airflow, something like that. But the reality is that you need to kind of do that initial research. The other part of it is you need to have a pretty in-depth understanding of DataHub's metadata model to understand how all of these concepts kind of work together. If I'm being honest, we have not made it exactly easy for folks to kind of ramp up on all of this and build from scratch. So what we've had in kind of the olden days is kind of loosely defined code standards, scattered examples, and again, it's just a really human intensive and time intensive exercise to go from zero to a net new connector. not only that, by the time folks in the community have gone through that great effort to build a new source from scratch, they then have to wait for a code review from our team and our code maintainers. And because our team is so small and the kind of sea of tools out there is so broad, chances are we don't have we still need to get ramped up on a bunch of contexts as well. So the time between PR being opened, initial review coming through uh, from our maintaining team or our team of maintainers, the feedback cycle can be really slower than ideally we would have in order to keep up with kind of the demands of the AI world. So what are we doing? Starting now, literally starting, I think Tomash published our first PR, our first release yesterday. We now have AI first tooling, AI first skills that you can bring into your development lifecycle. Doesn't matter what LLM you're using. If you're a Claude shop, great. If you're using Gemini, perfect. That's totally fine. All of these are going to be interchangeable and kind of resources that will really expedite the initial development planning and then ultimately or sorry, research and planning, and then ultimately the development, testing, and deployment of this. So instead of doing a bunch of spelunking through our code base, our doc site, you know, web searches galore, all you have to do is a few different things. One, you install the skills, and we'll go through what that looks like. Two, the agent is going to ask you some basic questions. Like really what we're optimizing for is having the agent do a lot of the heavy lifting and the repeated and just kind of table stakes work, and then bringing in the human where your expertise and your context about that source is extremely valuable. Then once you have once the agent has kind of gathered all of the information and like you've learned everything it possibly can about it, what the artifact that comes out of that is a very deeply or well-defined development plan that if you want to, you can build on your own and build from scratch, or you can have your AI agents do it for you. So because I am one more thing here. So there's going to be 3 different skills that we're introducing. These are skills that we're going to be iterating on, improving upon, and then also expanding upon. But first and foremost, it'll be load standards. What does this mean? These are the exact same standards that our maintaining team or the ingestion engineers. These are the exact same standards that they're kind of codifying around how we build a connector and how we build what makes for kind of a production ready ingestion source. The DataHub connector planning skill is going to be leveraging those standards, but also doing kind of more of the ecosystem research, the initial metadata mapping, planning around what's the kind of testing or documentation strategy. And then once you actually have something, once you have those code artifacts ready to go, we will also have our DataHub connector PR review. You can think of this as like, your DataHub maintainer on demand. So someone in your back pocket to basically ensure the quality of your code is prod ready, so that by the time you are ready to open that PR, we can really minimize the kind of the rounds of feedback back and forth between the author and our maintainers. So these are all one thing, like what I want to reiterate is these are all things that we are using on a daily basis. We are so excited, one, because we want to get them out into the community, but two, they're also making our lives a lot easier as well. So this is, no shortage of really exciting things here. So because I am a masochist, I'm going to do a live demo for us. Why not, right? So let's pray to the demo gods that everything goes well here. So if we go back briefly to our example of wanting to make a change, a breaking change in a production database and not having visibility into the downstream entities because of that lack of DLT, we'll head on over to my localhost here. And this is just, I synced over some data sets related to chess players and the games that they play and their rankings. If you have any, if there are any chess fans out there, might be an interesting API for you to mess around with. But what we see in our kind of before state, so before we have DLT actually developed and ingested and ready to go, is if I search for players, you'll see I have entities across Snowflake and DBT. So again, that kind of warehousing layer. And then we have our Postgres as kind of our production environment. So if we take a look at our, let's see here, players games. Oh, this is fun. Um, we will, okay, so we're in our players games data set, and we want to understand what happens if I rename a column, what's going to be impacted downstream of it. If we look at our lineage graph as it stands, it's very reasonable to look at this and say, well, nothing's going to happen, right? I can see, all of the fields in here. I can, and there's no lineage, there's nothing downstream of it, so I'm all clear, right? Well, wrong. there's a lot more to it. So what we're going to do over the next few minutes is I'm going to walk you through how basically how you can go from zero to prod level or prod quality connector source for DLT. So I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. So first and foremost, you're going to install your the new set of skills. We are deploying this out to a platform called skills.sh. And what's really nice here is it doesn't matter what model you're using, what platform you're using. Well, what it will do is it'll say, cool, here's your three options. So within this repo, we have the DataHub connector planning. So I'll go ahead and select that one. PR review, we'll skip that one for now, but we'll grab load standards as well. And so this will also give you kind of a nice preview of what the skill is meant to do. From there, it will prompt you. It has right now, I'm sure this is going to change, and there's going to be 15 more for us to consider tomorrow. But you can basically install this so that it's by default ready to work with whatever agent or platform that you're working within. So I am a Claude Code user, but if you wanted to, you can come in here, Droid, Crush, Junie, had no idea these existed. Ugh, I can't even keep up. But what's wonderful is that we're going to go ahead and import this for Claude Code. You can configure it to be available within your specific project. You can make it global, and then a symlink so that it's always up to date. So once you run through your installation, it's going to tell you all of, here are all the skills that were loaded in. And now what we're going to do is I will go into Claude, and I am automatically, so I mean, there's a couple ways that you can go about this specifically in Claude. If you just look for skills, it's going to tell you all the skills that you already have installed. Of course, this is just a demo environment, and it looks like I still have my PR review one in here. So those are already going to be automatically configured. The other part of it is that as we start pushing out additional improvements and changes, those are going to be up to date and ready for you. So first, what we're going to do is make sure that we are bringing in the context about what makes for, or kind of like what are the standards of metadata ingestion. So we'll just do our load standards skill. This will take a couple, maybe like a minute or two. But basically what this is doing is it's bringing in all the context of the minimum requirements for building a connector for a specific interface, building a connector for a specific entity type, or building a connector for, or actually regardless of a connector, your standards around testing or code architecture. So it really just this is a kind of foundation to start implementing those coding best practices right from the get-go. So now we have our code standards in here, and now I want to take a look at basically building a research or building a plan for DLT. So we'll go in here and do DataHub connector planning. Whoops. and I will put DLT at the end of it. Um, and this is a much more in-depth set of kind of skills and steps that it's going to take. So this is not, we're not going to sit here and kind of watch this do the whole thing. But basically what it's doing is it's doing research to kind of initially classify the type of source, going out to find the developer docs, all of the kind of implementation or integration, points of integration, authentication methods, types of metadata that's available, et cetera. And then it's also taking a look at, what are kind of the golden, we're referring to them as our kind of like golden connector standards, and saying, basically making sure that we have kind of a point of comparison along with our within our existing framework, and starting to like build out that entity mapping. So for example, with DLT it's, we start with, there's a data set, there's data in location A, we want it in location B. That's very similar to an orchestrator where you have kind of inlets and outlets. You have tasks associated with it, statuses associated with it. So it's doing all of that initial metadata modeling. So I'm going to let this bake over here. I actually have a similar or output from this before, and again, we're not going to go through this because it's really intense. There's a ton of information in here, but it's doing everything from kind of research summary in terms of what is the tool and how does it fit in with kind of the data ecosystem, fundamental entity mapping, architecture decisions, capabilities to implement. So what are kind of the table stakes for this? Obviously, if it's a task and a set of pipelines, we want to make sure that we're kind of generating or modeling those in a way that will make the kind of navigation and implementation intuitive. There's everything down to specific data classes that we are going to define, components that we're going to reproduce. Also the file structure. I mean, it is so incredibly detailed. And then last but not least, there's an approval step where you can, kind of be the human, come in and say, yeah, it looks good. But since this one, I'll be honest, this one is pretty cut and dry. But and because I already had because I already had this document generated, Claude kind of had a lot of the context that I'd already provided before. But in this step, this is where Claude is coming, or the agent is going to come back and say, here's what I'm proposing. Do you agree? Yes or no? So it is very much, if you've done Claude Code or any code development within a planning environment, or kind of a planning like stage, it is that very iterative and feedback. Here's what I'm seeing. Do you agree, disagree? And again, really just making sure that you're not spending your human hours poring over DLT implementation or technical docs, and instead you can kind of be the expert in your implementation of DLT and what you want to see kind of ingested from that implementation into DataHub. So once we have this, once we have our planning document ready to go, again, this is something where you could absolutely take this and you and your team, or you by yourself, could just start hacking away at it. I took this exact document, I gave it to Claude and said, follow the guide and follow the plan and build me a connection. So in this, yep, so that's our guide. What we ended up with is a file structure to start ingesting metadata from DLT into DataHub. So we have our config, our data classes, the client, the report. So you actually reporting what happened at the end of ingestion, and then also a full suite of integration tests and unit tests, documentation aligned with it as well. So really, really, really robust. And where we go here. So now I haven't pushed all of this into the open source repo, but I will be doing that soon. But now we have, kind of a full set of both the implementation itself, testing, docs, also some slight changes to actually register that source. And now we're ready to ingest this into DataHub. So quite literally, this whole process, I went from zero to this, I think in about an hour and a half, which if I were left to my own devices, I don't think I would have made it through our existing guides in, I don't know, maybe a day to even get to kind of our entity map. Um, so our pipeline finished successfully. We produced 30 events. We have a nice little ingestion outcome there. And so now we're going to go back in. We are in we're looking at our players games data set. Again, we want to see what will happen. Our understanding with this view is if I rename a column, if I drop a column, if I drop the table, no one's going to care, right? But now that we have ingested DLT, right off the bat, we get this one hop view. Let me close that out there. We get this one hop view from our Postgres data set out to the exact replica into Snowflake. So if we click on our little node here, we'll see that this is the player's games task, part of the prod to warehouse pipeline. You can see kind of the first level dependencies, all that fun stuff. But so right off the bat, this is a totally different answer, right? Okay, well, now there's a one-to-one sync from Postgres into Snowflake. So maybe I need to, kind of be proactive about that. But if we expand this out, we start to rapidly see that it's not just the replica itself. There are DBT jobs that create a staging layer. There are additional DBT jobs that create kind of data marts like DIMS, facts, et cetera. And if we wanted to, so let's actually go back here and say, if we wanted to, come on, little guy, there we go. So in this data set, because we're talking about chess games, there are white players and there are black players, just based off of the two colors of the sets. And so let's say we wanted to rename I don't know, we'll say white rating. With column level lineage automatically instrumented in this, I can now see that, well, if I rename that, there are quite a plenty of downstream entities that are going to be impacted by this. So maybe I shouldn't, kind of willy-nilly make that change. So again, this is something where if I had to build this out on my own, without LLMs, I genuinely don't know. I probably would have given up if I'm being honest. And that's not a great feeling after kind of being so close to, if I'm giving up, then there are definitely people who have tried just as hard and got way more frustrated and kind of struggled there. So all of this, instead of taking days or weeks in order to get something that's prod ready, legitimately took me, I think, about 2 hours from start to finish, with a little bit of extra tweaking here and there just to build out a demo. But I was fundamentally blown away, just shocked by how kind of the ease of setup there, and also the velocity. So what's next? So we have our new DataHub skills open source repo. It's within the DataHub project GitHub organization. We are iterating through some of it. We're publishing it out to that platform skills.sh, making sure that kind of everything's buttoned up there. But we are ready for. Oops, I am one slide. This is where I wanted to go. We are ready to start partnering with folks in the community. So we really are very excited about getting folks to starting to use this. Just because you're using it, there's no obligation to commit your code back to the open source community. We genuinely want to know, are these tools useful for you? Do they help you get a wider variety, a wider spans of metadata into DataHub? It's high quality, well tested, and reliable. So over the next month or so, I'm going to be very involved in the open source in DataHub Slack. I will my main focus is going to be working with folks in the community that want to test these out and build net new connectors and contribute those back. But then separately, we also want to make sure that folks who would benefit from those connectors have an opportunity to use for example, some of the PR review tools or skills to really make sure that like edge cases are well discovered and well documented. So if you are eager or if you're eager to contribute, and again, that could be code contributed back to the code base or contributing just your time and your expertise about specific sources, please, please, please reach out to me. I'm going to be doing some follow-up in the Contribute Code channel in DataHub Slack. The other thing I will call out is that we are going to be sending for the first 10 people who publish or successfully merge a PR into the project using these tools, you'll get a DataHub swag box. Likewise, the first 10 people who are jumping in and kind of doing that extra layer of a review and kind of testing, we also want to get swag sent your way. So I have gone on for far too long. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. But I encourage you to reach out with any questions, take it for a spin. I am very, very, very excited about this. Shishir, thank you for coming on over. I'm going to hand it over to you and we'll hear about what you guys have going on.
Sounds good. Right. All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Shishir. I'm here from Foursquare. At Foursquare, I'm the tech lead for the Geospatial Intelligence platform team. And today I want to talk about how Foursquare is bringing geospatial intelligence to everyone and not just experts. Before I dive into that, I wanted to introduce you to Foursquare a little bit if you haven't heard about us. So Foursquare is the industry's leading geospatial technology platform. Over the last 15 years, we've built our technology on top of advanced machine learning algorithms and a privacy-forward approach. We have worked with some of the largest companies in the world, and we enable them to make strategic decisions and build customer experiences based on location intelligence. A little bit about our platform. So our solutions are mostly based on two core aspects. One of them is movements, and the other one is places. Movements allows us to understand how people move and behave in the real world. And places is our global data set of POIs, which contains over 100 million venues. And both of these data sets essentially power our very broad range of solutions that we offer for marketers, analysts, and developers. All right, so moving on to geospatial. If you've ever had the opportunity to use geospatial or location data, you would understand the power of it, but you probably understand how it can be really difficult to harness this power, right? There's a bunch of challenges with geospatial data. The three pillars that we have identified are data, the tools, and knowledge. We know that data can be really fragmented. Tools can be really complicated to use. And even when you have data and tools, you need a lot of domain expertise and knowledge to use them effectively. And this is where Foursquare comes in. Our spatial suite of products help with each of these challenges. So let's go through them one by one. So the first challenge is data fragmentation, right? The problem is that geospatial data sets come from diverse sources. They can have many incompatibilities, like using different kinds of projections, using inconsistent standards. So doing a join across them and coming up with a cross analysis can be really difficult. And our solution to this is the Foursquare Spatial H3 Hub. What this does is it creates a universal grid system across all of these data sets. For this, we use the H3 indexing solution. And what it does is it converts a complicated geospatial operation into basic database joins. There are two aspects to this solution. One of them is the proprietary H3 indexing engine that we have, which helps us do this indexing and augment datasets with the H3 index. And the second one is the data catalog. So anytime users want to use these indexed datasets, they have to go through a DataHub Iceberg catalog. Right now, what we've done is we've taken over 50 publicly available datasets, indexed them, and made them available in the H3 Hub. For all of this, a very important technology that we have to use is DataHub. DataHub basically acts as the discovery engine for the H3 Hub. Not only the unified metadata, it's not only the unified metadata repository for us, it also controls access to these datasets. Because DataHub works natively with Iceberg catalogs, it knows exactly where the data is stored and how to access it. So when our users want to access any of these indexed datasets, they create a DataHub token, and then they can access these datasets through the catalog. DataHub's GraphQL API also powers our front end, offering searching and filtering capabilities. All right, moving on to the next challenge, which is the tools. If you've ever tried to use traditional GIS tools, you would have known that there's a very steep learning curve to them because they are built for a very specialized use case, right? And this is what we're trying to solve with the Spatial Desktop product, which is a very powerful computing platform, geospatial computing platform. It's using the desktop application is as simple as dragging and dropping your data sets into the application. Right away, you can get started with SQL queries to analyze them. And with the click of a button, you can create map visualizations on them. It is powered by this open source framework called SQL Rooms, which in turn uses Kepler-GL for visualizations and DuckDB for high-speed processing. All right, so let's move on to the third one, and possibly the most difficult of the challenges to really solve. Even when you have the right data and the right tools, geospatial analysis requires very specialized skills and domain knowledge, which makes it really difficult to translate a business question into a geospatial analysis that provides the right answers, right? And this is where our Foursquare spatial agent comes in. This is an AI agent that essentially speaks geospatial. It can take any question that is posed in natural language and convert it to an end-to-end workflow that answers and creates geospatial insights for you. It lives inside the spatial desktop application, and it can access the H3 Hub. So this is how we bring all of these products together. All right, at this point, I'd like to go into a demo and show you how you can use the spatial agent inside of desktop while also accessing the H3 Hub. So this is where we're bringing it all together. All right. Okay, so this is the desktop application. On the right, you can see there's the chat window. The question being asked to the agent here is which populated areas in California are at the highest risk from an insurance standpoint, right? So you can see that this in itself is sort of an open-ended question. The agent will have to figure out what data sets it needs to bring in to answer these questions. And here it's giving you a list of H3 Hub data sets that it will be using for this analysis. You can also see that at every point, the agent tells you exactly what it's doing. It's designed for transparency. So that you can decide how much detail you want. There are thought bubbles that you can go into and see exactly the queries that it's executing. Or if you don't really care about them, you only care about your analysis, you can just sit back and see it do its job. So in this case, right now, what it's doing looks like it got the boundary of California, and it is converting it into H3 cells. All right. I also want to point out that the agent will also ask for user input every once in a while. So here it's saying that, hey, this area is pretty large. It has a lot of H3 cells. Do you still want me to continue moving ahead with this analysis? So yeah, let's go ahead and see what's happening. All right. So now that it has the H3 cells, it is getting uh, the the relevant H3 cells from each of these data sets. So I see it's using some data from FEMA, calculating risk scores, population exposure. The other good thing is that it will, as it goes and continues working on these things, it will create interesting insights for you in the form of charts and map visualizations. So you can already see the map, which is pointing out which areas have higher risk, but you can also see on the charts that it'll break down the data into interesting slices. All right, the thought bubble shows us exactly what it's doing. I also want to point out that on the on the left side, we have the data explorer where previously I didn't have any data, but it was able to bring in this data from the H3 hub to answer my questions. At the bottom, you can see the SQL panel where it's running all of these SQL queries. So you can follow along as it does these things. And looks like it's done with its analysis. It's just creating a final summary for us. All right. So yeah, you can see the summary, again, more charts for us, overall risk landscape, highest risk populated areas, um, dominant risk, yeah, different kinds of risks, regional analysis. It'll tell you which map visualizations it created, which tables it created, and so on. And just I want to pause here for a second, um, just to talk about like this summary, right? So it has given us a bunch of key takeaways. So it says wildfire is clearly the biggest concern right now. The second one says there are clearly areas that are at high risk for multiple major risks. This could be something like wildfire with earthquakes and maybe other things, right? It tells you which areas risk is concentrated in, how the value of buildings will change things for us, and climate risks are accelerating. So this was a quick demo and your first introduction to the spatial agent. Um, in closing remarks, I just want to point out that this enables anyone to do geospatial analysis, even someone who's not familiar with, some of the more complicated aspects of geospatial data, like projections, knowing whether your data is a raster or a vector, those sorts of things. But it also enables geospatial analysis for people who might not be, very well versed with SQL. They might not have the expertise to be able to write spatial joins or even any SQL queries at all. So we're really bringing it to everyone and not just people who are technical or have domain expertise. I want to point out that these are the different these are the different spatial products that we've spoken about. This spatial ecosystem is built on top of open source technologies like Kepler, DataHub, DuckDB, and SQL Rooms. Um, and yeah, I want to thank DataHub for having me. And if you want to learn more or use these products yourself, please go to the website or follow the QR code. Thank you.
Shishir, thank you so much. Great presentation. Um, Hi, everyone. I'm James Mayfield. I am going to talk about the forward-looking roadmap here at DataHub. Um, I am the new VP of Product, joined a few months back. Previous to this, I was at a company called DBT Labs. And prior to that, I had a startup that I was a co-founder of called Transform, where we worked on semantic layers and an open source technology called Metric Flow, which was actually acquired by DBT Labs. For this presentation, we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to breeze through some slides about the future of DataHub, where we are looking in what I would call now, next, and later. Now meaning the near term, next meaning right after now, and then later meaning into the future. For those of you who are familiar with our product, we have three major portions that we've always talked about: discover, observe, and govern, all built on top of our metadata platform. And our most recent addition to this chart here is the AI space. When we think about the vision of AI, we've talked a lot about being a context platform and the importance of context. Today, what we have seen is that DataHub makes humans more productive, giving them a map of the enterprise data landscape. Some of our key use cases are around finding trustworthy data, building out the understanding of lineage, being able to do data quality checks, monitoring and enforcing compliance policies. Tomorrow, the big bet that we're making is that both humans and agents will be able to leverage DataHub and the context that we have about structured data and unstructured data into the future to accelerate their outcomes across those big three pillars of discovery, governance, and observability. I wanted to show a little bit about how we're thinking through the AI roadmap right now. John Joyce, who is a co-founder here, he presented last month at our town hall about the importance of plugins and pushing more context into DataHub so that we could take additional actions through MCP. We've talked about this agent context kit and having agents built in third-party platforms on top of the DataHub context that we pull together into our system. So he announced last month that we have this context area where people can begin to upload their own documents. In addition, we have these integrations with things like DBT Prod, this DBT Models Repository, Snowflake, and being able to have these AI plugins to unify context onto our platform so that then our MCP server can become more rich with its responses. When we think about what comes next, we've talked a lot about creating custom agents. The ability to publish a custom Ask DataHub agent with access to specific data and tools is on our sort of next up horizon. Having the DataHub MCP servers be enterprise ready and have user OAuth for MCP is sort of what's coming up next. We have seen more and more customers and prospects begin to put context into DataHub, have rich sort of agentic workflows that pull the structured metadata out of our systems and use those in their own sort of workflows within their data estate. That is certainly where we're headed. And then later, where does this all wind up is having actual agentic workflows within DataHub, having the ability to build multi-step sort of systems, leveraging AI agents to take action across the data landscape in a way that feels more like a workflow and more like something where you're setting up steps and having sort of agentic workflows with humans in the loop where you choose to have them. So when we think about now, next, and later, we've talked about this agent context kit, SDKs, integrations, and recipes for bringing DataHub context into building those third-party agents. When we have these nice plugins that we talked about, it allows you to unify context across DataHub, GitHub, DBT, Snowflake, Glean, and more. And the DataHub MCP servers providing access to context so that your tools like Cursor, Claude, and others will be able to have access to all of that enterprise data and metadata about tables, columns, dashboards, the transformations, all the things that may inform how you, when you're building those agents in your own system or building those workflows in your own systems, can leverage all of the structured metadata that we provide. So that's a brief overview of the AI space. Let's jump into the discover space. When we talk about our vision, look, the sort of world of humans finding and understanding trustworthy data today is the world that many companies, most companies, live in. The world of tomorrow that we're placing our bets on is that uh, not only humans, but also agents will need to navigate that entire data enterprise landscape and the supply chain, democratizing data and empowering organizations for not just humans, but also agents. Um, we have a tendency to think about how we can leverage lineage, how we can think about usage stats, history, ownership, all of those things to allow agents to be able to make better decisions because of the rich metadata we provide and the semantically rich metadata that we provide. As Maggie hinted at, there's always a need for new data sources. If you want to have great discovery, if you want to draw a great lineage graph, the more sources that you have, the more complete your ecosystem is in terms of being able to map out all of the sort of sources and transformation engines and warehouses and business intelligence tools. All of that becomes the source, like the ground truth for how you can do data discovery and furthermore, observability, governance, and AI. So some of the new data sources we're invested in, the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem, the whole Azure ecosystem, really. Data Factory, we've been talking about OneLake. We already support Power BI. Really fleshing out the full sort of Microsoft Fabric ecosystem is next up for us. We've also been working on connectors for things like Dataplex, Flink, Monte Carlo, and even Informatica to be able to sort of round out the full picture of how all of those parts of your data ecosystem can be visualized in DataHub. One thing that's, of course, very near and dear to my heart is the metrics catalog and the OSI, which stands for the Open Semantic Interchange. Snowflake put this together, and we are one of the first participants and the strongest participants from the catalog perspective. When we think about the DataHub metrics catalog, we've been developing this and thinking more and more about it and working with some design partners. What are the sort of primitives that need to exist in a semantic model? What are the key pieces of unique metadata that exist tied to a semantic model that define metrics, dimensions, time rollups, and then now more and more having that rich, long form textual descriptions that AI agents and systems are going to want to pick up for those metrics. This is our little diagram here that shows how we think about the world, where we want to have a catalog on one side. There's all these various places where metrics get defined: Snowflake, semantic view layer and metrics layer, the dbt metrics layer, Tableau has metrics, Looker, et cetera, et cetera. Having these translation libraries and being able to have a metrics catalog that has one sort of canonical definition built on this open semantic interchange spec, but then allows connection to all of the various places where metrics actually get defined. That is top of mind for us and something we'll be working on soon. And then cost management. This is one thing that we've heard again and again from our customers is help us to save money. If you at DataHub understand the full lineage from left to right, and you can see all the query logs and understand all the transformations that are occurring, help us to as customers, find places where we are spending compute resources that is not actually being consumed downstream, where we have large storage resources that are not being queried downstream, and help to call those out so that we can do basic cost control, cost remediation, and cost savings efforts on top of this lineage. When we talk about observe, our observability vision, similar to the other slides, we have a lot of human-focused and human-centric workflows today. In the future, we're going to have more AI and agent sort of native observability capabilities. We want to be able to leverage AI to be putting in place monitors on the most important data sets at your organization. We want to learn about those patterns and help to use LLMs to find the most critical pieces of your data ecosystem that should be observed and monitored. And then in the future, if we get really good at that and you trust us, we'll actually be able to put in place circuit breakers along the sort of left to right path of your DAG to prevent AI agents from consuming degraded data as part of that workflow. First up, look, we need to get good at detecting. We need to have strong anomaly monitoring, and we've been working on something we call smart assertions for the basics of volume, freshness, and schema changes across your landscape. Working on that now. We're going to help to improve the resolution of how our system can not just sort of point out the issues that are coming up, but then also deeply integrate with Jira, PagerDuty, and more to help drive incident resolution. And then long term, we want to be improving the overall data health of your system. We have this thing called the data health dashboard, but having better trends and insights, surfacing these directly, creating the right alerts and reports so that folks can understand how they are actually pushing along. Lastly, I know this has been a brief presentation, but lastly, I just wanted to highlight this governance sort of area. Governance is a very critical part of how many of our prospects and customers and open source community members all sort of engage with DataHub as a tool. We've been focused historically on shifting left that governance structure, really like dialing in ownership, having glossary terms, classification management, tags, tag propagation, all these things. Bi-directional syncs with Snowflake, Databricks, and BigQuery. And then that is sort of the ultimate foundation of how we think about data governance. Into the future, we want to be talking about data governance as part of those cost savings or cost control efforts I mentioned, also maintaining strong data governance and compliance posture over time. It would be so great to have an AI agent or an AI assistant that can be proposing data descriptions, proposing classification, proposing even an understanding of the critical data elements that will be reviewed during part of an audit for GDPR or SOX compliance or an S1 or anything like that. Agentic workflows to automate those complex multi-persona governance processes is how we're starting to think about the world and how we can actually improve governance workflows, not just for humans who are tasked with what I would call like high toil, high effort manual workflows, but then how can we actually leverage those LLMs to be reducing that human toil and improving the overall posture in an automated way. I realized that was brief, but I wanted to stop sharing there and say thank you. I don't know if we have time for any Q&A questions.
I came over to say hi again. There are some questions in chat. I know that sounds like some folks are eager for access to the slides. We are going to we're going to figure out the right way to distribute that out. And then I know that there was also a question around geospatial, explore use cases for geospatial data. Shishir, I think, is going to see if we can pull together some resources. And so, Solomon, we will do our best to get those over to you so you can chat with your team.
Also, I saw a question from Rich Bussin. Rich, if you want to go deeper, I'd be happy to connect with you offline here and tell you about any part of our roadmap that you would like more information on.
All right. All right. So the AI agent capability, will that be available in open source in the near future, Sandeep? I think AI agent is a very loose term. Like we could take that in a lot of different directions. James, you want to speak to like just from a roadmap standpoint, anything you talked through?
Oh, the one within the UI. So we have Ask DataHub. That's our own AI agent that is part of the DataHub Cloud product. We do not have plans to open source that at this time. That's actually one of kind of the key differentiators that when we're selling our cloud product has been helpful to paint the picture of how customers can actually move from OSS onto our cloud product and try that out.
All righty. And okay, I think we have covered all of our questions. Happy February. I hope
Thanks, Ann.
everybody's staying warm. If you're on the East Coast, sounds like there's some pretty heavy snow. I'm in Chicago, so I don't really pity you. All right, everybody. Happy February. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you at the next one.
Thanks, Ann.